detective panel. Paint Minion, I've gotten 2 questions from you already, which is very exciting. And we were talking about them a little bit before, so we'll go through and introduce ourselves and say where we're from, and then we'll start answering your questions. Yay! Okay. I'm Aurelia. I'm in the East San Francisco Bay Area. I don't know. Who wants to go next? Somebody, go next.
I'm Heidi Angel. I am from the Salt Lake City area, and I am the author of the Clear Angel Chronicles, which are a paranormal detective series.
I'm Kelly McClymer. I'm from Maine, and my mystery series is the Secret Shopper Mom mystery series, and the first one is Shop and Let Die, and the second one is I'm licensed to shop.
Hi, I'm Nan Sampson in real life. I write a mystery series called the Ellie Gooden Mystery Series. The first one is Restless Natives, and the second one is coming out in May called Office Heretics. And I'm in the grim, gray Chicago area.
So is your last name Sampson with a P?
Yes, it is.
That was my last name before I got married.
Oh, who knows?
Yeah.
We can sure tell relatives.
Yeah. And where, I'm sorry, where were you from again?
Chicago.
Chicago. Okay, my family's all from Boston.
Well, my
Originally.
family is from St. Louis. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, you know, we Sampsons, we get around.
So the first question is, have you ever switched your antagonist in the middle of writing a novel? And we were having a bit of a discussion about whether you're planting red herrings versus changing your mind about who did it.
Right.
I always know who did it. My problem is making it a mystery to everyone else.
Right.
Well, you know, with my license, with my Shop and Let Die, I did not know who did it. I deliberately did not know who did it. I just created suspects, which was kind of interesting because there's the first mystery I ever attempted, and mystery has always intimidated me. I'm fine with romance, I'm fine with science fiction, I'm fine with fantasy. Mystery, you know, I love to read it, and I love to try and guess who did it. So I think that I was almost having a situation where I wanted to guess who did it right up until I knew. So I didn't know till I had written 3/4 of the book who did it. And then, of course, I had to go back and put in some red herrings.
Yeah, I always know who the bad guy is. And it's figuring out how to introduce the bad guy that's fun. Because in my stories, it's always told from Clear and Grant's perspective. So you never really get to see the bad guy thinking like the bad guy. It's always just the detectives figuring out from information that they have. And sometimes you do, because Clear is a psychic. So you'll get psychic premonitions that she has about what's happening, and sometimes it's from the perspective of the villain, but it's so much from the perspective of the villain that you don't know who the villain is. It's not her seeing the villain through the victim's eyes or anything.
The villain isn't thinking of himself as being a certain size or a certain shape or a certain name. He just is focused on whatever it is he's doing, right?
Right.
So I totally had a question that was in context of this, and
we have another one that didn't answer yet.
Yeah, so we have, do you remember your first mystery stories you loved as a child?
Oh, wow. Who didn't read Nancy Drew as a child?
I did.
I don't know.
Oh,
I read her.
I love Nancy Drew. That was probably my first.
And Agatha Christie?
Yes.
Yep.
Don't forget Trixie Belden. Trixie Belden was one of my favorites.
Oh, Trixie Belden and Robin Kane, totally.
I was a big fan of the Hardy Boys, and
I liked them too, and the Boxcar Children. I think that was
Yep.
Yeah, that had a mystery to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I liked the what was it? It was an Alfred Hitchcock. It wasn't actually written by Alfred
TV
Hitchcock,
show?
but
the
no,
Mystery Magazine.
It was a series about 3 boys that were the Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Club or something like that.
Oh.
I can't remember.
I
It
would
was
have wanted to
awesome.
read that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
My
Jupiter
favorite-
Jones was the main guy, and I was in love with Jupiter Jones, and he was such a geek, so I know why I married the man that I married today.
There's also Sherlock Holmes.
Oh,
and
yes.
One of my favorite movie mysteries is called Dr. Bell and Mr. Doyle.
Yes.
And it's entirely like what made Arthur Conan Doyle create Sherlock Holmes.
Mhm.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It's like it's a scary Victorian thriller mystery, and it's so good.
That sounds awesome.
It's so
Yeah.
good.
I also like the Bones series.
Oh yeah, I like that too.
Temperance Brennan is just awesome.
She's awesome. My
So-
my sister's like turning into her.
Yeah.
Not on
Yeah.
purpose. Well, maybe a little bit on purpose. I mean, my sister's the one who introduced the family to the mystery stuff. I mean, my mom would read mysteries, but my sister was the one who made us watch the TV shows.
Mm.
And now my sister's studying anthropology and she wants to do osteology.
That is so awesome.
So awesome.
Sadly,
Yeah,
that
I-
was one of my majors.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I have way too many.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask. So, okay, so one of my things that I like doing is because I tend to write an omniscient point of view, because that's how I perceive the story. And so sometimes I feel like I'm having trouble because I want the reader to know what's going on, but the characters in the story don't know what's going on.
Hmm.
So, does that happen to you guys ever?
I've
Not with
trained
my
myself
detective
out of it.
Yeah, I don't have that problem with my detective series. I have had that problem with the Hunters, telling it from too many different points of view, and it gets confusing for the readers. So I've tried to tone that down.
I think there's times when you want the readers to know, but I think that when you do that, it has to be an overall part of the narrative voice, because if you just do it occasionally,
Yeah.
it doesn't
But you-
work.
And you have to find a way to do it. Like what I ended up doing with the Hunters was I had each chapter told from a different perspective, because originally I was doing it more omniscient and just clarifying who was saying it and who was thinking it with the taglines, and it was just too much jumping for people. But it played out like a movie in my head, and so I wrote it like the movie. And most movies aren't seen from just one person's perspective. It's from an overview, and you read the feelings and the emotions and stuff on their face. And so when trying to do that way, I ended up having to break it up into different chapters, and it was told from this guy's perspective in this chapter, and this guy's perspective in this chapter, and that girl's perspective there, to make it work better for the readers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to rely on third person limited more than omniscient.
Right.
And I think what you have to do if you're switching viewpoints, you need to make sure that the viewpoint character who's telling the story at that point is bringing something unique to the story and providing information perhaps that nobody else could, so that
Right.
that change in viewpoint has a purpose.
Right. So,
Yeah, it could be interesting for a mystery. If you always have the readers a little bit ahead of the characters, that would be interesting. I don't know how the readers would respond to it. It would be interesting to see. I'm trying to think of an example
I
of
guess
it.
it would depend
and
on
I
why you're
can't.
reading the mystery. Are you reading the mystery because you want to solve the mystery, or are you reading the mystery because you want to be entertained?
Yeah.
Or watch the character and sort of, feed it
Yeah.
through the character. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting
I
question.
don't know. Because, like, I like a lot of different types of mysteries, but I tend to watch them more than I read them. Like, I'll watch Criminal Minds, and
Oh, I love Criminal Minds.
I'll watch Castle, and I'll
Yep.
watch Bones.
Aurelia, are you my sister? Because
I think how much time we've spent together the past few days that, like, yes, I think we need to spend more time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if anybody's read or watched the Murdoch mysteries.
Yeah.
Those are my
Love those.
favorite right
Yeah.
now because Murdoch just invented everything, every
Yes,
modern criminal
yes.
device, and I love it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good British ones that I don't know how my mom gets them, but she does. She gets them somehow. Uh, and and apparently there are a bunch of good Scandinavian ones that are like in Swedish and Danish
Yeah.
and stuff.
Um,
And my mom can watch them because she's studied those languages and she like wants me to watch them, but I'm like, I don't want to learn my language watching a movie. I want to have fun watching a movie. And so like
yeah.
that's too much effort for me.
I
So
tried to watch one of those, I think, but the language was just so far different that it threw me off. It
Was it
was
the girl with the
my.
dragon tattoo?
I liked that
This
one.
was
See, that one
this
I
was a
can
mystery
watch
series.
in Norwegian, that one. But I've
Yeah.
studied Norwegian. I haven't studied the other languages. So like
Mm.
I get enough of it. I remember enough of it. I only took one semester. Um, yeah, my family is strange.
No, no,
Although
no.
I,
These
Strange
random
isn't cool.
we have these random things. So my parents like met doing international folk dance. So I grew up with
cool.
like Norwegian and Swedish being and Bulgarian and like Greek being normal languages that people would talk.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So did we answer both of our
I think we did answer both
questioners'
of our
questions?
questions already.
Okay. Thank you for asking questions.
Oh, there's more. There's how about real life mysteries? Do you work on ideas from real life or imagined ones? I think that depends on whether it's a mystery that's sort of a contemporary one or a historical one, or whether it's a like I think you can have mystery in fantasy and stuff. I do that.
Mhm.
Oh yes.
Well, I
mix
think you
my
can also
genres
get
up with that.
inspired by real things, like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Bones. Often the TV shows, mysteries especially, are inspired by real crimes, and
Well, and it's
they're very
inspired by
thinly
the books
disguised.
that Kathy Reichs wrote, which were inspired by the work she was actually doing.
Right.
Yes, yes, and the Bones and Kathy Reich's books are so totally different. If anybody hasn't read them and runs out to read them, just the books are way better, but they're very different.
Yeah, yeah, they
Much
are.
darker, much
I'm more focused on the crime.
yeah, more focused, even more focused on the crime, if you can
Right.
believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
my husband and I are really good. We do not eat dinner when we're watching Bones
See,
because
I love to eat dinner when watching Bones, and my husband's like, "Can we please watch something else for dinner?" Like, I'm like, seriously, this is awesome. Whatever.
no, I mean we have strong stomachs, but we just don't want ever to see her working on a body that looks something like what we're eating. It just does not work.
Yeah.
What was the
So,
question? I already forgot.
Real life, real life.
Oh,
Yeah,
so I wanted to say that my mystery character is a mystery shopper. So I based it on my real life experiences as a mystery shopper, but then of course I used my imagination to actually put crimes in there because I never ran across a serial shop killer when I was doing mystery shopping. Thank goodness. But I did in my book.
yeah.
Well, I
so
think we all.
is your protagonist Kelly? Does she know sort of where to start to solve the mystery because she reads them?
It's more like she gets hooked into it because she happens to be in the right place at the right time and the FBI wants to use her. And she's just, mystery shopping is an interesting profession. It really is kind of like being a detective. You're supposed to watch all of this stuff, but you're not supposed to let anybody know that you're watching. And so you have to pay a lot of attention to these little details that someone has told you to pay attention to. And so that's just kind of how she is. So naturally, she's going to take a little bit of license with what the FBI wants her to do and go a little bit further because, she really wants to catch the person
Yeah.
despite her husband's disapproval.
Yeah. With the Clear Angel Chronicles, I do pull a lot of her visions from real crimes that I've read about. And the villain isn't always, and the main story arc isn't always based on a real crime, but pieces of the things that happen are, because I love ID. Slightly addicted to true crime stuff, and that I call it research, but my husband just calls it an unhealthy obsession.
Everything is research when you're a writer.
Of course it's research.
Exactly.
I watch
Exactly.
Disney movies as research.
Exactly. And I justify my unhealthy obsession by putting stuff in the book and saying, no, see, look, it really was research. See, I learned about this here. And so he has no room to talk. But, yeah.
And there's something about watching those true crime shows where you're thinking, why did they not see this so quickly? You know, and
Right.
you just want to rewrite real life to make it
Easier.
fit better.
Yeah, especially the ones where they never catch the criminal.
Exactly.
Those are, I think that's part of why I made Clear Psychic, because
So she has an advantage.
Yeah.
yeah, and there's the whole exploring the advantages and is it really advantage piece to it, but I think that, you know, her being able to connect. Sometimes you see these cops and they have become so disconnected because it hurts them too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so they talk about these crimes and they don't seem bothered by the fact that they didn't solve it. And they're like, well, there just wasn't any evidence. And that would drive me crazy. I used to want to be a police officer, and then I met some police officers and I was like, nope, I madly respect what you do, but I would eat my gun. I really would. The first time I came across a case where I couldn't solve it, where I couldn't help the people, I don't think I could emotionally handle that. So.
Well, and there's also the being concerned that you actually catch the right killer, because you know there are enough cases where they put someone in jail who didn't actually do it, that you know there's a responsibility to actually be accurate, or I would feel that anyway, which is why I too would never be in one of those professions for real.
That's why I love Gibbs from NCIS.
I love that
He's
man.
awesome.
Right? He is so amazing. He's like, my gut tells me he's not the guy. We need to keep looking. And I'm just like, I love your gut. It's so beautiful.
Well, one of the issues that one of the major characters in the second book in my series is dealing with is that he was a Chicago police officer, and there is rampant crime all over the city. There are cases that will never be solved. There are cases that can never be solved. They're random acts of violence. And the main character, her parents were killed through a random act of violence. It's not one of those storylines that's ever going to be resolved. You know, maybe they'll catch the drug dealers, but maybe they won't. And that's a theme that runs through those stories, that I'm providing closure to a certain crime because there aren't crimes that just simply can't be closed. It's got to be a heartbreaking situation for the victims involved and the families.
It's like Cold Case.
Oh,
that
I love
TV
that show.
I loved that show.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's the thought of giving, you know, closure and justice, even 20 or 30 years later. That was so satisfying.
Absolutely.
So how do you guys research your detective characters, whether you call them detectives or not? You know, do you look at the actual police force and how that works?
Yeah.
Do you go outside of that?
Yeah, so for me, with the Claire Angel Chronicles, I actually have, after I write the script, I send it to a police officer that's a friend of mine. And he goes through and he's like, that's TV, that would never happen, that's TV, that would never happen. And I'm just like, okay, so how would that really happen? And he's like, you really should be paying me more. But no, he has been an incredibly wonderful resource with that. And I wish I could find a forensic pathologist that I could do the same thing with, but I rely a lot on forensic white papers. I try to keep the police procedural aspect as accurate as possible to make the psychic part more believable.
Has anyone been to the Writers Police Academy?
No, but I want
No.
to someday.
That sounds
I've never
fabulous.
heard of this. Please explain what that is.
So basically, you know how they train police officers and other professionals to go over a crime scene, and they talk about ballistics and talk about the different types of guns, and so there was actually a Writers Police Academy. I forget who did it. He was doing it down in Atlanta, the
Yep.
Atlanta area, I think, but he's moved it recently, and he puts people. I think it's I don't know how long it is, but I
It's a
think it's a
week-long
week.
course.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
get all the same training that the police get.
Yeah.
So you're really, and plus you get to talk to professionals, because he has people come in and talk about their specifics. Everybody I know who's gone through it loves it. My series isn't gritty enough that I would want to subject myself to that
Yeah.
right now, but I think if I were going to do a real serious mystery series, with like CSI or something like that, I would do it, because I think there's nothing like getting into that mindset really deeply and being able to ask your questions right when they occur to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a ton of questions, and I don't have any real professionals that I ask, and I know from friends who do this that you can ask it's like asking 5 different writers
Yeah.
what's the best way to handle a situation. They're all going to have different answers.
Right, and a certain amount depends on where you're writing too, or where your characters are from too, because police procedural laws are different from county to county.
Well, I once went to a talk by a coroner, and she actually was interested in writing and was starting writing, but one of the things she said is, the first thing you have to know is that it's different. And she said, Quincy, no, never pay any attention to that. And, I don't even know if that's in reruns anymore, but he was a coroner detective who was always going and questioning the suspects. She said, no, that doesn't happen. And then she said, sometimes these people have no training at all. They're not even doctors. It depends on, it's very locally controlled. And so then she walked us through some of the different things. And she's like, if you really, where you are, you have to do the research for exactly where you are or where your characters are.
Absolutely. So like in mine, it takes place in a small town in Montana, and the coroner is the local pediatrician.
Right.
Because
I love that.
in the last 20 years, she's done 3 autopsies, because they only do autopsies if it's not clearly, if you can't tell clearly why the person died. And in 3 years, they've only had 3 murders where they had to prove until this case happens. And then she's like, can we please call in the state, because I can't do this.
I love that it's a pediatrician. But the other thing that this coroner told us, which was kind of shocking to me, but also gave me ideas if I ever did a mystery, is that there's a certain parameter where if they can't tell, it's age parameter, where if they can't tell what happened, they'll do so if you're over 50 and you just die, they don't look, you'd have to have obvious signs of poisoning or foul play, or they would just be like, oh, that person was old, which since I'm over 50, that bothers me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, 50 is too young for that. But I mean, just imagine if you know that, you could, give somebody a poison and
that mimics a heart attack.
Never get caught.
As long as the symptoms appear to be a natural cause. If they look like they died of a heart attack, they don't do an autopsy. Yep. And that also depends on where you live too.
Right.
It varies from state to state and from district to district. I know that in Aiken, it doesn't matter why you died, you will have an autopsy.
Oh, I didn't know there was any place. That's good. Yeah, I approve of that.
South Carolina, but they're predominantly a retirement community. And so their philosophy is, unless there's a religious reason, there will be an autopsy. And if they can't determine the cause of death, there'll be an investigation. But until there's an autopsy, they don't assume anything.
Either way. Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
So, may I ask a question of all you other authors?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I write primarily cozy mysteries. They're pretty fluffy. It's more about the characters and the town and the interactions of the people than it is a police procedural. But it sounds like you guys are more leaning towards a police procedural. How do you balance that light, fluffy, feel-good entertainment mystery against that getting the nitty-gritty facts completely correct. I mean, you have to get it correct or people are going to call you out on it. But how do you drive a balance between that nitty-gritty and the light and fluffy Nancy Atherton kind of storyline?
I totally cheat. No, seriously, I do. This is the only way that I even agreed with myself that I would write this series. So the character is kind of loosely based on me when I was raising my children and doing some mystery shopping, and so it's really more involved with being a mother and trying to figure out whether you want to work or stay home or do all your things, and so when I get into the police part, my character is best friends with someone, a female police officer who would like to be off desk duty. So I can keep it pretty low key on the details. And then the FBI comes in, and my character doesn't know very much about the FBI, so I don't have to do too much. But I'm getting the third and fourth books. I'm getting a little more into the details, so I have to look. What I have to study is the crime. That's what I find is the interesting thing for me, because the first one is a serial killer, and I totally cheated on that because I'm such a serial killer fan, and it's like,
I think we all are.
I kind of have an idea, but this person, I'm going to catch him fast. It's not going to be detailed, and so that's really cheating. The second one was it involved identity theft, which is actually my character is set at a university, and identity theft is a real big problem for university students. So I started learning about that, and I was like, this is a huge issue. So again, I cheated because my character's a busy mom, so she just learn all the details. So I don't know. I'm waiting for my readers to start calling me on that, and then I'll have to do my homework a little harder.
So far, so good.
Yeah. With mine, I'm not a cozy mystery. Mine is not cozy mystery at all, and which kind of made me sad because I love reading cozy mysteries. But there's a lot more focus on the procedural, and when I wrote it, I thought it was more of a hard-boiled detective with an element of paranormal. And then there's relationship building going on between these two broken characters. Claire, because she connects too much and has a hard time staying in touch with who she is, and then the detective, because he moved to this small town from Chicago, ironically, because he was so overwhelmed from his job and he couldn't handle it, and he just wanted a nice, easy job. And so after his divorce, his marriage was ruined because of his job, because he couldn't let go of the job. And so,
story.
Yeah, it's a very real story, yeah. And it's funny because when I read reviews of the series, I learn more about the person reading than I do about the book.
Oh, yeah.
And there are some who are like, I loved how, all these details were so accurate, and, they're hardcore detective buffs. They like the whodunit type things. And then there'll be some that are like, it's such a great paranormal romance. And I go, wait, what? No, it's not a romance. Okay, well, there's an overarching romantic aspect, I suppose. But, you think paranormal romances end happy. My characters are never happy at the end. Never. They catch the bad guy, and then they're mad at each other. And their relationship only works when they're working. And then when they're not working, everything falls apart because they don't know how to
just be together.
Be together, yeah. And they probably shouldn't. They're one of those character relationships where they're just not good for each other. But they're so lonely.
I hope she has a best friend.
She does, the coroner.
Oh, okay.
And the coroner's like, look, Grant, I get that you're lonely and everything, and I know that Claire's really lonely, and I think you guys could be amazing together, but if you break her heart, just know I know 100 ways to kill you. And nobody will ever know. And I'm just like,
that sounds very Rizzoli-and-I's.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah, I like them.
But it's kind of flipped because Claire is more like the coroner, and Claire is the psychic, and she's more of the touchy-feely, emotional, but I have to pretend I'm logical. And Anne is more of the I go with my gut, I know how I feel, and I will stomp you if you make me mad. She is a really tough. I have to say, everybody's like, oh, we love Claire and Grant because they're the main characters, but Anne is my favorite of all of the characters in the series.
So
Well,
we
I
had
hope they
another
don't hear that.
question, and that is, how much of your main character is really you?
Haha, none.
I know, for me,
I will
well,
deny
there's
this.
one that's a little bit, but she doesn't exist outside of, yeah, I know who she is, but the story with her isn't published yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
She,
seriously.
I met this particular character when we were the same age, and the story about her, she's still like 14 at the beginning. But it's
Well-
my story that grew up with me. Like, I learned how to tell story by revising the plot in my head
Mhm.
as I grew up. So,
But the stories are always about you. The characters are not necessarily, because sometimes you're exploring, characters who have traits that you don't have.
yeah.
For my mysteries specifically, I built a character who was kind of similar to the way I was, at one point in my life, because I thought the struggles were interesting. But yeah, you definitely would not recognize me from that character, and I'm more than that character, I think. Plus, when you write more, the character becomes the character and not you. But if you're going to write anything, you're going to be in it, because that you can't stop.
Right, you're sharing your worldview.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I have to say, I shouldn't say that my characters aren't me. I think part of the reason I like Anne so much is because she is more true to who I am. And I think that the reason that I write Clear and Grant the way that they are is exploring those other viewpoints. They're very much not like who I am, except for the workaholic part. But most of what they are. Now, I have incorporated elements of who I am into them, of course, but like I pull a lot of Claire's experiences with her psychic experiences being overwhelmed from my experiences with migraines. And she ends up getting migraines when she gets overwhelmed, because migraines are usually a trigger from lack of sleep and too much stress, which makes sense that if you had psychic experiences that weren't allowing you to sleep and were stressing you out, you would get migraines. So.
Well, you made me think of Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and I think most of us, when we're reading, we really identify more with Watson than we do with Sherlock Holmes. Sometimes those secondary characters are just a lot more comfortable than, who wants to, when you really look at Sherlock Holmes, he's a very complicated, interesting character. I might enjoy spending some time with him, but I would need breaks.
I would kill him. I would kill him.
He's a high-functioning sociopath, right?
Yeah.
And
So-
Benedict Cumberbatch plays him so well.
Oh, so well.
Yes.
Ugh.
But I like, I forget who plays the Watson character. I love him.
Oh,
yeah.
Martin
He's
Freeman.
the guy. He's
Martin
I don't know
Freeman.
what
Yep.
Oh, yes.
is that what his
thank
name
you.
is?
Yes.
He's also in Love Actually,
Yep.
Yes.
and he's
Isn't he in The
Bilbo
Hobbit?
Baggins
Yes.
in The
Yes.
Hobbit, and he's in something else too.
He's in a bunch of stuff. He has had a very versatile career. And what I love is that every character he does is so different.
I know
He
he's
really is a very versatile actor. Sometimes you don't even recognize him until like halfway
like,
through it.
Where did I see him? Oh, no.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
because
right.
he's
He had elf
so
ears or hobbit
yeah,
ears.
he's so unique to his character that those you don't recognize the voice even necessarily right away, because he gets so into his characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for those questions. We appreciate them very much.
Yes, they're awesome questions, and it makes me happy that people are like listening and asking questions.
Yeah.
Because there were a couple where nobody did, and then I was sad.
And then you had to scramble, right?
Oh no, she didn't have to scramble. We like to
I
talk.
feel like I'm scribbling today because I have 2 nights of sleep deprivation combining to make me be a zombie.
Yeah, that was a fun discussion earlier.
It was a fun discussion, but like I don't remember any of it. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it over again.
For future reference, next year the zombie panel should be the very last one because then you will literally be
We'll
a
all
zombie.
That's
We'll all
true.
fit. Yep.
So, would you ever put a zombie in a mystery?
Oh,
Why
sure,
not?
why not?
If it
They're pretty
fits.
hot.
Yeah. Now, would they actually be real zombies? I could see setting a murder mystery at a zombie convention.
Oh yeah.
That would be fun.
Oh, that would be
That
fun.
would be fun.
And then you wouldn't realize it was a dead body because everybody thought they were
Yes.
dressed up as a zombie.
Exactly.
They were
I
doing a
would
really
see
good
that.
job of acting it as it.
Well, I
Yeah.
just learned all about cosplay yesterday at a Bangor, I'm going to say its name wrong, Bangor Comic and Toy Convention.
Mhm.
And so they had a couple of panels on cosplay, and they had a cosplay contest and everything. So I was talking to some of the people about it, and they just get together and have little parties and everything. So you could definitely have a zombie cosplay get together that went wrong.
Oh,
Yeah.
Or,
I-
or
As a matter of fact,
I
didn't
think I
Castle?
need that in my mystery.
Yes.
Castle had an episode like
Yes,
that
he did.
where they were doing the street walking.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
and the
That
poor
was
guy thought he was a
scary.
zombie. That's right. Yes, I love that one. That was so awesome.
was it Castle or was
Yeah.
it NCI or no maybe CSI that did a furry convention?
Oh, CSI did the
Oh.
furry.
Okay.
Yeah,
couldn't remember.
probably.
One I
That
never
sounds like
heard
something
of.
they would
so
have hit.
good, and then what's his name left, and then
Yeah,
it got bad.
Grissom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked the New York one okay. And I wanted to like the Miami because I love the guy that plays the head detective. But
David
the-
Caruso.
Oh, yes, I love him and a bunch of other stuff, but I just couldn't get behind it. I tried really hard, but I couldn't.
Now, how about NCIS New Orleans?
I've only seen like 2 or 3 episodes, and it was the same thing. It was like, it's just not the same without Gibbs. It's really not.
Well, nothing is the same without
Yeah, yeah. I remember when he quit for like 2 episodes, and my mom was like, "Okay, we're done. We don't have to watch this anymore." I was like, "Well, but we like Abby, right? So let's just." I'm so glad we hung out longer because she thought for sure he was gone for good, and she had no desire to watch it. But yeah, I think without
No,
Gibbs,
they're
it's just
just
not as
upping the
good.
drama. It's probably a contract negotiation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We
Well,
have
and that's
another
why Kate
question.
left.
Yay!
Okay, really, it's 2 different questions. How many books ahead are you planning, and how many different series do you each have?
Oh boy. I have 6 Ellie Gooden planned, 3 written. I have a haunted bed and breakfast cozy that I'm launching in the fall. I have a fantasy series I'm working on and a steampunk adventure series that is developing a spin-off. And then there's a space opera that's waiting in the wing. There are too many to count.
Love it. Love it.
I
Space
counted
opera.
last year and I had 60 things, but like a lot of that was just the first one in the series.
Hmm.
So like, yeah, I don't even know where to start answering that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have 2 mysteries that are on the schedule, 2 more mysteries in my series that are on the schedule, one for May and one for September. But I enjoy writing them. They're very relaxing to me because what I basically do is go around my little town and think, oh, who would make a good crime victim and who would make a good villain? And it's really fun. And, I love the people. I lived in a very little town, and I moved a little further away to where I don't live in any town at all right now. And so I still go back to my little town for inspiration. And I like that. It's relaxing. But then I also have a historical romance series that I just recently started listening to the readers who want more books. And so I think I'm going to do something with that. No
You should.
commitments. If
Your
there's
romances are really good.
and but then I'm also trying something totally new and cool. I think it's cool in my head. Will it be cool in reality for my fantasy world? And so who knows? It's a whole juggling thing.
Yeah. With the Clear Angel Chronicles, my mystery series is probably the one that I have planned furthest ahead, because I've been playing with the idea of the Clear Angel Chronicles since I was 12. When I started falling in love with mystery stories. And so I have like 500 different possible stories because each book is a separate crime
Right.
that happens. And then I know how the arc of their relationship is going to go to a certain extent, but I don't know the order in which the mystery events are going to happen to fit with that overarching. I'm only 3 books ahead right now.
So do
with
you
that
think
one.
that your series could be like the Sue Grafton series or the Stephanie Plum series and go really long? I mean, Sue Grafton is just now getting to Z, and but it takes her 2 years to write a book. So
that's the next question that Paint Your Minion has for us is how long does it take to write a novel?
It depends on how much time I have to write. So like in 2013, I released The Hunters, Clear Angel Chronicles, and Elements of a Broken Mind all within a year. I'm sorry, Elements of a Broken Mind and Angel's Dance all within a year. It took me a month to write The Hunters. It took me 2 years to write Clear Angel's first book, Elements, and then it took me 6 months to write the second book in the series. And then I didn't publish anything until this year. I just released the Hell School series, which is the first in a 4-part series about stalking for young adults. And I released the first book in that. The Hunters, the second book in the Hunters series will be out this summer, and then the third book in the Clear Angel Chronicles will be out early next year. And part of the reason there was that huge gap is that I was working from home, and then I ended up having to go work out of the home, and that really sucked, and I had no time ever at all. Plus, I have 2 boys that are like on the verge of teenagehood, so I really had no time ever at all.
But lots of great story ideas.
Yeah. Great ways to not kill a child. But yeah, and then about 6 months ago, I was able to start working from home again, and I just have so much more time to write. So it just has a lot to do with how much time you have to be able to carve out for writing, I think.
I also think that
especially when the stories are in your head,
just write themselves faster. Other stories, it takes you longer to figure out what the story is or what the details are of what happened. Some stories are just difficult, and some are easy.
And you can think one is going to be easy, and it turns out to be difficult. And you think one is going to be difficult, and it turns out to be easy. So
That's
you
true.
really, really don't know until you're completely finished. And then you're like, oh, it's
like
done.
A mystery. Yeah.
Is Paint who is it who's asking the question? Is Painter?
I don't paint. Twitter is telling me Paint Minion.
Okay, so Paint Minion needs to be thanked for asking so many great questions.
They are great questions.
Thank you, Paint Minion.
Thank you, Paint Minion. The first half of the tweet Paint Minion sent, where she asked how long it takes, was, "You guys are doing great."
Aw, thank you.
So, do you place your mysteries in places that you're familiar with, or that are similar to what you're familiar with, or do you do places that you want to become familiar with? Like, I know Elizabeth George and her Inspector Lindley series is all set in the UK, but she lives in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Nancy Atherton has never been to England, and all of her stories are set in that quaint little town. And she's the first one to say, yeah, no, it's not my environment, but she captures it so well. I write about the Midwest because I've lived here almost all my life, and it's what I know. But I've never lived in a small town. I know lots of people who have lived in a small town, so I get the politics and the relationships, and it's where I would like to retire. But I live in the plastic suburbs, so I'm writing some of what I know, and I'm also writing the place that I would like to be. I create a town that I would want to live in.
Right. Yeah. So the Claire Angel Chronicle starts out in a small town in Montana, which is where I grew up. But the rest of the books pretty much won't happen in Montana. So the second book happened in Chicago. His daughter got kidnapped, and he comes and begs Claire for help because after 48 hours, the cops still have no leads, and they say, oh, well, she probably just ran away, and he knows his daughter didn't run away. And he knows that he can't go back in there because he didn't leave on the best of terms. He needs Claire's help to get access to the information and to find his daughter before it's too late. I've driven through Chicago once.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah,
I
used
don't
to
know a
take
lot,
me,
but Google has been amazing, and finding pictures of Chicago and using Google Maps for the road trip into Chicago, and then bloggers from Chicago. I read a bunch of their poetry and stuff and how they describe the city, and so that gave me all of that feeling and smells and the tactile that I've never experienced, which is amazing because 10 years ago I could have looked at a map and I could have looked at pictures, but I wouldn't have really been able to describe the actual grid of the city, having never been to at least somewhere similar.
The one time I remember, so my dad used to take me up. My grandmother lives in Indiana, and my dad would drive me up to visit his relatives in Chicago when I was really little, but I don't remember any of those visits because it was always my birthday's like the beginning of January, so we would be doing that visit like over the holidays, and then we would drive back to Indiana and meet everybody at Olive Garden to like celebrate my birthday. And the Olive Garden like birthday song is the scariest thing ever. So like I only remember that.
Well, if you ever need info about Chicagoland, give me a holler.
Well, I went a few years ago over the summer with my sister, and the thing I remember the most is how confusing the roads and the highways are, and how there's like a toll that's like 25 cents, and then there's another toll that's 49 cents. And
it's even more now. It's 80 cents a pop.
It's so confusing because it's like these little bits, and like it would just make me pay $5 once.
Right.
I would be okay with that. It would be not confusing.
Yeah.
So Paint Minion says, best advice for a new writer, and you're very welcome.
I didn't get to answer about
where you pull from. That's right.
Where I pull from. And I want to answer it because I already said that I write where I know for my mysteries, but I first got published in historical romance set in England, which I had never been to at that time. So I credit all of my travel and knowledge to people like Charles Dickens and Jane Austen and all of my books. So that's where I got my knowledge. And it's not their fault when I made mistakes because they did it right and I did it wrong. I just wanted to say that. Because really,
they were writing about their own contemporary time period and location.
Yeah, I know, and they did a great job, and if I didn't do them credit, that's my fault. But seriously, I feel like I traveled a lot before I actually started to travel because of reading.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Actually, this is not relevant to our best advice for a new writer, but when I was really little, I was convinced that England was this like magical land I had invented in my head.
Oh, no.
And like when I found out that it was a real place, that was just the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
Best advice to a new writer.
Yeah, read. Stephen King was right. It amazes me how many authors don't read nowadays, and you can tell in their books
Yeah.
that they don't.
And read the things that you're not comfortable reading. You
Yeah.
know, if you've only ever read cozy mysteries, go read some classic literature, go read some romances.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. If you've only ever read literary fiction, go read some genre fiction.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, one of the
Cross-pollination.
things I did that was really valuable for me, and it wasn't when I was a new writer, but it was when I was really trying to up my game a little bit. I started reading. I had, a shelf of my favorite books, and so I would pick one off, and I would say, okay, I'm trying to really convey this about the character, like emotional upheaval or confusion. And so I would pick a section in the book that had done that really well for me and try and figure out how they did it. And so it was really, really interesting because I would get super focused. But then I would find that I would read that scene and I would think about it, and then I would continue to read and read until I was done the book.
Yeah.
So it's dangerous, but it is useful. Just make sure you have something to take notes on because you will forget because you will get caught up in the book again.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing I think is just to write.
Yeah.
There are so many people who they're so worried about how it's going to look. That's what editing's for. You have your story idea, and you can plan and plot. And I have a friend who I absolutely love him. He is an incredible, he does sci-fi. Well, he wants to do sci-fi. Let's put it that way. He has this incredible science fiction world that he's created. He's a great artist, and he's drawn all of his characters, and he knows everything in and out and in and out and in and out. And when you ask him to see his book, he doesn't have a single page written. And, at some point you have to, and I don't think that, I'm not trying to say that planning isn't important and that having an idea of where you're going. And I know there are people who say that they're pantsers, but I can't fathom. I have to at least know beginning, middle, and end. But even if you're not writing your story, sit down and write. Because as with any thing that you want to learn, it's going to take you 10,000 hours to get good at what you're doing. And if you're spending that 10,000 hours just reading, if you're spending that 10,000 hours just planning, then you might end up with a great story, but it's not as good as it could have been because you didn't spend any of that 10,000 hours writing. I'm reading a book by Magnus von Black, I think is his name. It's a pen name. But anyway, this guy, when I read his words, I get lost. Not just in his story, but in his words. I mean, he paints pictures that are, as a writer and as a lexicomaniac who loves words, when I find an author that uses words that I don't know, I get excited. When I find an author that uses words that I don't know on every single page, I feel edified. It's spiritual for me. And I can't even tell you what's happening in the story right now because I'm so focused on, I just enjoy every single line that he writes.
Yeah.
You can't do that if you're not writing, if you're not practicing writing.
Yeah. So we have two more questions. One is from Critter217. Have you ever had to kill off a character you were particularly attached to?
Yes. I
Yes.
just did that in my newest one.
Oh.
I was very sad. But he had to go. And I can't say who, because some of my readers might not have read the book.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have. But it's hard because I know the whole story at once. So, like, they're not, those characters might get killed off, but they're not ever dead.
Right.
Oh,
time doesn't, like, happen the same in my head as it does as you're reading the story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once I kill them, they're dead to me, and it breaks my heart because that's the end for me. I can't ever write them again. I can't ever go back and write the past because they're gone. And
according to soap operas, man, it's okay.
Or comic books. Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. I have in the Clear Angel Chronicles, or in the Elements of a Broken Mind, and it's really hard when you don't plan it ahead, so you don't have that preparation to know. Um, I
Oh,
got
so
to a
you
point in the
killed off
story,
someone
and I was like,
unexpectedly?
yeah, well, and it's not a
Oh.
someone, it's something. But okay, so in the Clear Angel Chronicles, the whole thing with Claire is she has isolated herself away from the world um, because the psychic experiences hurt too much, and the more she's around people, the more it hurts. So her family is her ranch, and her best friends are her pets on her ranch. So she has this dog named Hercules. That is a Great Dane, based very much on Scooby-Doo because I loved Scooby-Doo growing up, and and then she has 2 horses that were her parents' horses that they left to her when they died, and that's her family. That's all she has left, and um, I needed a catalyst to push the story forward, and I was kind of like, okay, she and Grant had this big fight. He's a jerk. He doesn't believe her. They think they've got the bad guy, and she's saying you're wrong, and they kind of go their separate ways in a fight, and I'm like, okay, how do I get them back together, and how do I get him to stop being such a jerk about what she's going through? Because he's seen her in her psychic experiences, and there's still a part of him that's like, he's following her because he thinks that she's doing something with this guy. He doesn't actually believe that she's psychic, but she knows things that she could only know if she knew who the killer was. And so he's taking it from that perspective. He's not entirely sure, and even after those experiences, he finds a way to rationalize to himself that this isn't real, that she's just a charlatan. And so I needed this traumatic catalyst to bring them back together. And I dreamed about how traumatic it would be for her to lose her family. And then I cried as I wrote it. And after I wrote it, I was like, I was trying to keep this PG-13. It was the most graphic part of the book. And I was like, I don't know if this is okay. And so I took it to my mom because she's a very strict Mormon. And so she's kind of my gauge of, is this really PG-13 or is this like Hollywood PG-13? And I took it to her, and she came to me an hour later, and she's like, I hate you. You can't take this out, though. You have to leave it in. I hate you. I can't believe you made me read that. And I was like, I know, me too. I hate it too. But I left it, and it's a really emotional scene, so it was needed to move the story forward.
Yeah. We have another one from Paint Minion. Have you ever been caught in an error in your mysteries?
Once it's published? No.
I
With
don't
my
think
beta readers?
so.
A lot.
Not yet. And my mysteries.
So far, my mysteries are all in fantasy worlds where they don't really have proper forensic science. So, yeah. They're just trying to figure things out.
I do want to say that sometimes people will think they found an error that's actually a result of things being different in different places, or things being different from real life and TV.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't been called out on anything, though. So.
Well,
read the
thank
book
you.
and tell me, is there an error?
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for this discussion. I had a lot of fun.
Me too.
This was great.
It was great.
It's fun. Like, I don't know. I don't talk about mysteries all that much. I don't know why. I just don't. So it was fun.
Thank you. And thank you all the people who asked questions.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was great.
Yes, you were
Wonderful
great.
to have you
Paint
guys.
Minion, thank you.